Oh boy, fireworks at 49ers practice, day 2 of training camp today. Can't wait to talk about it over the course of, who knows, maybe we go for an hour today, maybe 30 minutes. Depends on how good some of your questions are. So start getting those ready. I'm not going to read the question section, though, for quite a bit because I have some semi-prepared remarks. I have some semi-prepared highlight videos to play for you. Anyway, welcome to day 2 of training camp. I'm obviously back in the studio setting now. The article is finished. It's up on The Athletic. Matt Barrows and I also just did a live room up on The Athletic. That's the video I'm going to play in a little bit. This is the article that I wrote today. 49ers training camp day 2, Charvarius Ward and the DBs duke it out with Trey Lance. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that link, put it into the chat section. It's also going to be in the comment section as soon as this video wraps up. So there you go. Go ahead and check that out. That's the link in the chat section. I think you can actually click on it if you do go to the chat section, for sure, if you go to the comment section. But as you can tell from both this title that I put down at the bottom of the screen and the headline of the article, it was eventful today at training camp. I thought that day 1 was a little boring, and I wasn't surprised that it was a little bit boring because day 1, that features all the basic installs, right? Offensively, we didn't see either of the 49ers quarterbacks throw it further than 10 yards downfield day 1. They were just working on the basic pass patterns. Also, they're working behind an offensive line that doesn't yet have pads on. The offensive line is disadvantaged in that situation because it's a whole lot easier to block when you're protected by pads. So the 49ers on day 1, they didn't want to do anything crazy. Let's just put it that way. They just wanted to gradually build into the flow of things in training camp. But then they unleashed it a little bit in day 2. We saw plays where they were gunning for it downfield. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. For Trey Lance, well, more of the time it didn't work. So let's just be honest. On Thursday, he went 7 of 15. So more incompletions than completions. But I'm going to go through how, I just think it's so good for him as a young, developing quarterback to face off against this 49ers defense, because that secondary is playing really good football right now. And I think it might be the best secondary that the 49ers have fielded in this John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan tenure. And 2019, yeah, they were good. They're anchored by Richard Sherman. But this 2022 secondary, they've got some real talent that's, more in the primes of their careers. And they've developed Emmanuel Moseley. He's playing bigger this season. DeMeco Ryan said that he's more physical. He's added some muscle. Well, he was all over Brandon Ayuk. He had a nice pass breakup over on the far side. Trey Lance tried to loft a big fade route down that way, down the sideline. And it looked for a while that Ayuk would come down with it. And maybe last year working against Emmanuel Moseley, he would have come down with it. But not this season. Emmanuel Moseley, that extra muscle just pried that ball out. And that was good coverage from Emmanuel Moseley. Charvarius Ward, 49ers' big prized free agent acquisition of the offseason. He's sticky in coverage, and they try to go Lance deep to Juwan Jennings down the near sideline. Charvarius Ward did not allow Jennings to have any separation. Another great defensive play. And Charvarius Ward already, just based on the reviews from his 49ers teammates, from DeMeco Ryans and the coaching staff, this guy, I think this guy's going to be worth the $14 million that the 49ers paid him. And remember, he's the first big money cornerback that the 49ers have on their roster since Richard Sherman. They signed Sherman in 2018 to a deal that was worth up to $13 million per year. He ended up making about $31 million over 3 years. So he ended up making about $10 million per year. But Charvarius Ward, he's in there for up to $14 million per year. And I think the big money cornerback is important in this defense. It's a rush over coverage team, but the coverage has to carry its end of the way too. It's a symbiotic relationship, right? And obviously the pass rush is going to be there for the 49ers if they stay healthy. But the coverage wasn't quite there last year after Jason Verrett got hurt. Well, I'll tell you what, Charvarius Ward, he locks down half of that field. He's been sticky in coverage. Him and Moseley, both there playing that press man coverage that DeMeco Ryans wants to see in this scheme, and it was on display today. Now, Jason Verrett, he was on the sideline. He's still on PUP, physically unable to perform. But I think with Verrett, man, God, they're expecting him back here within the next few weeks. Trey Lance let it slip today, but Kyle Shanahan already said it yesterday. Verrett's going to be back on that practice field soon. That's amazing insurance for the 49ers. If he plays anywhere close to how he delivered coming off of injury in that 2020 season. Moseley ever goes down, Charvarius Ward ever goes down, plug in Jason Verrett. Maybe you mix one of those guys into the slot. Right now it's Darqueze Dennard who's playing in the slot and doing it well for the 49ers. And guess who else is playing well? The safeties. Talanoa Hufanga already seems entrenched for the 49ers. Great PBU today. Trey Lance drops back the pass, operating from the pocket, scans around the field, thinks he can hit Brandon Ayuk coming back toward the line of scrimmage. No, says Talanoa Hufanga, jumps the route, knocks the ball away. It was just one of those instinctive plays that didn't look like he was a rookie anymore. And he's not a rookie anymore. He's a second-year guy. Hufanga looks like he belongs. And, we talked about him getting all the first-team reps for the 49ers at safety, strong safety opposite Jimmie Ward in OTAs. And that was all great. But we also said, hey, let's look out. Let's see what Charvarius Ward does now that he's had a few practices under his belt coming off the Achilles. Let's see what George Odom does, the free agent that the 49ers picked up from the Colts. I don't think either of those two guys, barring an injury, are going to usurp Talanoa Hufanga. Hufanga just looks the part. He runs a 4.6 40. He's not overly fast, but instinctively he understands what's going on out on the field. He only makes that pass breakup today against Brandon Ayuk and Trey Lance if he does, make a read and has that quick first step, and he makes up for that 4.6 speed with it. So I think Hufanga, was well on his way toward being the 49ers starting strong safety. It's really hard to read a lot 2 practices into camp, if anything. But if there is something that you can read, it's safety play, right? How's the anticipation? How are they moving? What's their actual football speed? And Talanoa Hufanga's football speed looks nice. And D'Amico Ryans asked him about Hufanga today. He said the communication has been a lot better. He's always been instinctual, but he's communicating a lot better. And that's something that Jaquiski Tartt did really well for the 49ers last year. So Hufanga looks good, and Jimmie Ward's been good for several years. The ugliest pick today came from Trey Lance to Jimmie Ward. Just didn't see him. It was one of those picks that people got on Jimmy Garoppolo for. Shorter pass, Jimmie Ward intercepted it. I think it was intercepted intended for Brandon Ayuk as well. Anyway, those of you just filing in, why don't we watch some of the practice highlights today? This is the 49ers practice highlight reel. So I'll go ahead and erase the text. That's your wide receivers group with Leonard Hankerson in cinematic mode, breaking the huddle. Headed to practice. Trey Lance to Brandon Ayuk. These were some warm-up passes. Lance outside the numbers. I have a dedicated Lance highlight reel that we'll take a look at in a bit. Brandon Ayuk leading the wide receivers through their cone drill at the start of practice. Danny Gray, rookie, number 86. He would later catch a long touchdown pass from Brock Purdy. That was the biggest play of the day for the 49ers in 11-on-11 action. So we'll talk a little bit more about him later. You're going to see Malik Turner, 17, and Ray McLeod, 2 veterans, round out the 49ers cone drill here for the wide receivers. Then we move back to some quarterback footage. Trey Lance was working on the handoffs. Reason I picked this clip is because you see some interaction with new 49ers quarterbacks coach Brian Griese here. Griese showing him some of the ins and outs of footwork, and obviously Trey Lance being a sponge. There's Griese. Remember Griese, first-time coach, but you could tell he's having some fun out there as well. Spencer Burford, 74. We saw him at every single rep at right guard today for the second straight day. Every single first-team rep has belonged to the rookie, number 74, out of 49ers training camp. Here is the rookie hype machine. That's Quantrez Knight, DB out of UCLA. Plenty athletic. I can't wait till Drake Jackson, 270-pounder, does some of those flips. There you have a throw from, was that Purdy? No, I think that was Lance, right? No, that wasn't Lance. That was Purdy. That was Purdy throwing to Danny Gray. Now you're going to have Trey Lance working to Marcus Williams here on the near side. So I got all the quarterbacks. Nate Sudfeld, by the way, you're about to see him throw. Mr. 20 of 22. Nate Sudfeld has completed 20 of his first 22 passes at 49ers training camp. That's impressive. He's been crisp. The ball's coming out of his hands nice. $2 million guaranteed for Nate Sudfeld this year. That means he's been the odds-on favorite to win QB2 for a while. And that's an important position, especially since the 49ers have seen so many quarterback injuries over the past few years, not just to Jimmy Garoppolo. There were 2 of them to Trey Lance last year. This is an extended clip. I got a little bit more of Trey Lance for you guys because I know that you all love to see the Trey Lance footage. So the camera just going to follow Trey Lance for a while, just so you see how he carries himself, how he gives Brian Griese a high five. He's a leader out there on the field. Jimmy Garoppolo's not there anymore. This is Trey Lance's job, and I think Trey Lance is exuding a nice second-year vet's aura now. Last year, he was the rookie who knew his place last year, and now he is the second-year vet, first-time starter who has to assume that role. So now we're going to see it flipped out of the shotgun, completion to Brandon Ayuk. And that is the end of the 49ers practice highlight reel from today from yours truly. Edited it on my iPhone. It should be one of those billboards. Edited the 49ers practice reel on the iPhone. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about Brock Purdy and his arm strength. In this article that is up on The Athletic right there, remember, if you're just coming in, go ahead and check that link out. I'll put it into the chat section one more time so you can subscribe to The Athletic. I think it's a great time to do so. I talk a lot about Sudfeld and Purdy. And I'll go ahead and take Charvarius Ward off the screen right now so we could just talk about Brock Purdy. A lot's been made of Brock Purdy's arm strength or lack thereof. And, to a lot of that, I just say, duh. The guy was literally the final pick of the NFL draft. 7th round, last pick, Brock Purdy. You're not going to find a cannon-armed quarterback in the 7th round, the last pick. There's going to be some kind of limitation at that point. The guys who are really smart and have great arms are going to go earlier in the draft. So you have to find a workable arm at that point. And Purdy threw 2 picks today. He went 5 of 7 through 2 interceptions. Both of the picks were on plays where he was rolling out to the naked side. So he was rolling out against the grain. He's a right-handed quarterback, rolling out to his left, getting away from some pressure because the 49ers defensive line just owned matters today. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But he, it was kind of the crossbody throw, right? And both times it was an inadvisable throw. Both times it turned into a floater. The guy's not Patrick Mahomes. He's, doesn't have the ability to rip one off platform when, the mechanics aren't there. And the mechanics weren't there. And the first time, Kadar Hallman picked it off. I think it was intended for Juwan Jennings the first time. By the way, Kadar Hallman's a cornerback, a depth for the 49ers on that 3 team right now. He was teammates with Samuel Womack, who was their 5th-round draft pick this year, the nickelback. But Hallman could really move. He can fly. He's a 4'4", 40 guy out of Toledo. And then later on, Brock Purdy tried to go deep again off schedule. Another throw where he was moving, didn't really have his feet set. That one floated up too high, and that one was intercepted by Taylor Hawkins, the safety, cornerback term safety, undrafted free agent out of San Diego State. Other than that, though, the 5 completions for Brock Purdy, 2 of them were really impressive. One was a deep bomb to Danny Gray, ended up being a touchdown. Gray got behind the defense. And the other one was a nice deep out that he threw. I believe that one went to Juwan Jennings. Yes, it was to Juwan Jennings because it was right after the interception. You had Purdy throw the pick intended for Juwan Jennings, and it went to Kadar Hallman. Well, then Hallman, a possession later, was on coverage against Jennings. Deep out pattern, pretty throw from Brock Purdy. I mean, a throw that you have to have some arm strength for, and it really exacted revenge for the interception, the possession before. So the difference between the 2 picks and the 2 really nice throws is that he got both cheeks into him. Purdy got, he got his feet set, delivered from the pocket. And, for a 7th-round pick, the very final pick of the draft, if the guy can make NFL throws with his feet set in the pocket and he's smart, and I think Purdy is a smart guy. I think he processed the position really well at Iowa State. That's what you want. As a developmental quarterback, that's what you want. I mean, Nate Sudfeld, we'll talk about him in a second. He's got a stranglehold right now on the QB2 position. So in all likelihood, Purdy's a guy that you develop on the practice squad. And he made the throws today, the deep out pattern that you have to make in the NFL, and the perfect deep ball to Danny Gray. He made the throws today when his feet were set. Is he amazing athletically to the point where he's, able to rip them off balance and off platform? No, he's not. But that, this is kind of what you signed up for with the final pick of the draft, the guy that you hope turns into a good developmental prospect at pick number 262. So those are my thoughts on Brock Purdy's arm strength. If, you're sitting there bashing him for his arm strength, you're not looking at this situation with the appropriate context. Speaking of Sudfeld, he's not sitting out there making too many risky throws. And he did heave one deep the other day and 7-on-7s on day 1 of 49ers training camp. So we know Sudfeld throws a nice deep ball, but what we didn't know is that Nate Sudfeld was born in Santa Clara at Kaiser Hospital. Found that out today. Grew up in Modesto, but lived the first 4 years of his life in San Jose. In Modesto, that's a good Northern California, Central Valley town, right? While in Modesto, Nate Sudfeld was a big Joe Montana, Steve Young, and Jerry Rice fan. So this is a Niners guy. And also, he has a connection to Brent Jones's family. So Nate Sudfeld played for the Philadelphia Eagles before this. He is gung-ho 49ers, grew up a fan of the football team, and now he's in line to be QB2 for them. Remember, this goes back all the way to the offseason. Nate Sudfeld signed a $2 million fully guaranteed contract with the 49ers. A lot of people wondered why. Well, he was a tremendous mentor to Trey Lance last season. These two guys can't talk about each other enough. Jimmy Garoppolo did a really good job, I think, giving Trey Lance a tutelage from an X's and O's standpoint last year. But as far as preparing how to be a professional, learning about the business aspect of the game, Nate Sudfeld was the other voice in Trey Lance's ear. And the 49ers saw that, right? They saw how well Nate Sudfeld related to Trey Lance and was able to, give him some of the bits and pieces of knowledge that are so necessary to succeed as a quarterback in the National Football League. And because of that, they were more than happy to bring Trey Lance back, to bring Nate Sudfeld back to, again, be that voice in Trey Lance's ear. And on top of that, I think that Nate Sudfeld has clearly developed as a quarterback over his time with the 49ers. I mean, we saw him back in Philadelphia in that game that it seemed that the Eagles were looking to lose on purpose, that got Doug Peterson fired, or at least ended his tenure with the Eagles a couple years back in 2020. And, Sudfeld was a little bit of a laughing stock of football back then, right? Nate Sudfeld was synonymous there for a while with trying to lose a football game, or so it seemed for the Eagles. Well, now Nate Sudfeld, I think, is starting to show signs of being a legitimate backup. He's tall as hell. The guy's 6'7". It's funny, he's one of the tallest QBs in the league. If 49ers are ever playing a second unit or something this year, and which they have, you see it on the practice field, they have one of the tallest QBs in the league at 6'6", 6'7", whatever Nate Sudfeld is, and the shortest offensive lineman in the league in Jason Poe, who's been impressing them as well at right guard. He's only 6'1". So it's a massive height difference that you see between quarterback and offensive lineman out there on the field. Speaking of linemen, here's a big point. Pads aren't on yet. Right? So pads aren't going to come on until Monday. The schedule is as follows. The 49ers will be back out there tomorrow, Friday. Maybe they'll put on shells and they'll be back out there again on Saturday. They take Sunday off. They don't really hit stuff gung-ho, full speed, pads popping until Monday of next week. And guys like Jason Poe, who had a bad rep today against Charles Omenihu, who might play that Arden Key role, by the way, might kick inside for, those passing downs, rushes, defensive tackle. Those guys have massive advantages against guys like Jason Poe. I mean, Poe, he's got shorter arms, right? He's only 6'1". That's the shortest lineman in the league. It's going to be an uphill battle for him regardless. But without pads, these offensive linemen are at a huge disadvantage. So, I mean, you probably see Nick Bosa dominate anyway because he's Nick Bosa. But Bosa was unblockable today. Armstead wasn't at practice. We don't know why. We'll find out tomorrow. Omenihu had that ferocious rush against Jason Poe. Kamoko Toure looks good. I mean, even the new guy, Robert Nkandiche, looks good. I mean, the defensive line is ahead of the offensive line right now. And part of that's because the offensive line can't have pads on yet, so they can't protect themselves. So they're a little bit behind in that, practice ramp-up curve. But another part of the issue is that the 49ers are, the offensive line right now is just something that, to me, is really scary for the 49ers. You had Colton McKivitz as your first-team left tackle because Trent Williams is still away due to a family issue. Aaron Banks, second-year man, he's starting at left guard for the first time. Jake Brendel and Daniel Brunskill splitting time at center. Brunskill's more experienced starting there than Brendel, but Brendel seems to be the choice 1A right now. Brunskill's 1B. You have at right guard Burford, like I just said. Every single first-team snap, this has been the biggest surprise, biggest development to me, most newsworthy, noteworthy thing of the first 2 days of camp. A rookie fourth-round pick out of Texas San Antonio has taken every single first-team rep at right guard for the 49ers. And then you've had Jalen Moore at right tackle. Mike McGlinchey, he's at practice, but he's still ramping up into full-time team rep kind of stuff. Same thing with Javon Kinlaw, who was his rehab partner this offseason. Kinlaw is just kind of watching on the side. I think by Monday, when those pads come on, I think you'll see both of those guys start to work in. But as of right now, you had McKivitz, Banks, Brendel/Brunskill, Spencer Burford, and Jalen Moore left to right across the offensive line. That's a scary proposition, right? So you better hope some stuff turns around, and it will. Trent Williams will be back. You hope that Aaron Banks takes care of business at left guard and plays like the second-round draft pick that he is. You hope that either Brendel or Brunskill man the center position at least half as well as Alex Mack did last year. But, I mean, even if all those things go right, you still have this gaping hole at right guard, assuming that Brunskill can't take over that right guard position. He's the incumbent starter. And right now, they had to have seen something over the course of OTAs in Spencer Burford, who, by the way, looks great on his college film, tossed guys around like ragdolls. But that was at San Antonio. That was Conference USA action. He must have shown something really impressive to at least earn this early opportunity at right guard. And McGlinchey, of course, is expected back at right tackle. You know, it could be that the 49ers right now, without McGlinchey and Williams available for team reps, it could be that Jalen Moore, who played so much right guard in OTAs, is needed at tackle. But still, if Jalen Moore were a legitimate threat to start at that right guard position, if he were a legitimate contender, you would at least think that the 49ers would give him some reps at right guard. They wouldn't just be wasting away 2 practices, and they didn't. All those reps belong to Spencer Burford. So buckle your seatbelts. It could be good news. It could be bad news. I don't know what to make of this quite yet, because I want to see how the machinations work once Trent Williams and Mike McGlinchey are back. But Kyle Shanahan promised musical chairs along that interior offensive line, and it certainly looks like we're going to get them moving into this season. And I cannot stress this enough. Everybody wants to get their clicks, and they want to talk about Trey Lance all day, and they want to talk about all this crap regarding the quarterback position and drama and all this. If the 49ers don't figure this out in pass protection on the offensive line, none of that will matter. Pass protection has derailed this team too many times, and they have to figure it out, especially in front of a new quarterback. They cannot get worse in pass pro up front. Yes, Trey Lance may have some escapability that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't have, but I've said this time and time again. Patrick Mahomes has escapability that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have too. And Patrick Mahomes got destroyed in the Super Bowl against Tampa Bay when they couldn't block for him. So you have to be able to block at some level of plus proficiency to have a chance offensively. And right now, you know that Top Gun song, Danger Zone? Classic 80s song, right? The 49ers are in the danger zone in that offensive line. There's no other way to put it. When you've got McKivitz, Banks, Brendel, Burford, and Jalen Moore left to right, you're in the danger zone, right? Pads are going to come on Monday. That's the danger zone. Will it get better? Yes, it will get better, because Trent Williams, the best player in football, is coming back. 99 on Madden, first offensive lineman to be rated that high. Of course it will get better, but the point is that you're still flirting with disaster, and that you need, I think, a parlay of things to go right up front for Trey Lance to have the best possible situation along that offensive line. So let's talk about the offensive line a lot. Let's be smarter football consumers here. Let's not just get stuck in Trey Lance clickbait. Let's talk about that 49ers offensive line, because it's so important that they improve and figure that position out. Anyway, those of you just walking in, make sure you hit the like button. I know there's a lot of new viewers right now, and hit the subscribe button, because we're going in depth on the 49ers this year. By the way, articles up on The Athletic. Those of you who just came in, I'm putting this one more time into the chat section. So please do subscribe, because we do appreciate anybody who goes and checks out some of the written content as well. I think right now it's time to take a little bit of a breather from me talking so much and watch our Trey Lance highlight video. So here we go. There goes nothing. Trey Lance highlight video from today. Some of these clips you've probably already seen. That's to Marcus Williams over on the near side. Here's Lance working alongside Purdy. Brandon, that's not Brandon Ayuk. Couldn't tell who that was. My screen is a little bit smaller right now, so we'll watch that in a bit. But yeah, when I edit these videos, there are some duplicates, but I realize you guys want as much Trey Lance footage as possible, so why not? Lance the Kittle. 49ers hope that's going to become a common connection this season. That was your Lance the Kittle connection during warmups. They did hook up for a pass during 11 on 11s, but we're not allowed to film 11 on 11s. So there you go. Here's Lance again, near side completion. That's Tanner Hudson, tight end, fighting to make the roster, formerly of Tampa Bay. Has a penchant for making some nice one-handed catches. Here's Lance with the footwork drill before practice really hit full swing. Nate Sudfeld, you can see how tall he is, number 7. Lance, not a short guy. He's 6'4", 6'5". Sudfeld, obviously taller than him. Here we go. Trey Lance working with the QB staff. Brian Greasy took the fake handoff that time, and Trey Lance worked on rolling out. Now, Lance, he's just got some oomph in the arm. That's the kind of throw that Purdy struggles with, throwing off platform, moving away to the naked side. Trey Lance doesn't struggle with that throw. That's where the arm talent really shows up. The ball kind of hisses coming out of his arm. He has the oomph. with that arm. I think you're going to see Purdy go through the same thing here. It's going to be a fake handoff to Brian Griese, the quarterback's coach. But I just kept the camera on Trey Lance because I think that's what you guys want to see. So Purdy went through the drill. You can watch some of my other videos. I follow Trey Lance, though, because this is the Trey Lance specific video. There's Brian Griese, likes to run around a bit, give some simulated pressure. And just look at that flick of the wrist that Trey Lance gives. Maybe I could even rewind this a little bit, a few seconds. Watch how the ball just kind of squirts out of his arm. It's a flick right there. The other guys on this roster aren't doing that. There aren't a lot of players in the NFL, I think, with that kind of raw arm talent, which is what the 49ers like. He's big, strong, physical, and that ball does get out of his hand with some velocity. Now, can they refine the throwing motion? Of course, they're working on doing that. Can they refine some of the other mechanics? Of course, they're working on doing that, tightening up the release. But there is zip that comes on these passes, and I think as Trey Lance does work with NFL-style coaching, as opposed to, coming out of the FCS level, the accuracy will improve as some of those mechanics do improve. They've already made big strides over the course of this offseason. This was the portion of practice where they were working on more fakes, and Trey Lance was talking a lot to Brian Griese. They were working on footwork. You see Brock Purdy behind him. Purdy, Lance, Sudfeld, all working on the same stuff. And I followed Trey Lance around here with the camera. Handoffs, these aren't fakes anymore. They're working on fakes earlier. They're actually working on handoff technique, which for a team like the 49ers, one of the few teams in the NFL that's going to run more than they pass. And that's going to be the case under Trey Lance. And it was the case under Jimmy Garoppolo. It's just a Kyle Shanahan thing. Handoff technique is really important. And we're only allowed to film handoff technique during training camp. Once the season starts, we're not allowed to film handoff technique because supposedly it would put the 49ers at a competitive disadvantage. There's small minutia that teams watch with this kind of stuff. And obviously Brian Griese has a close eye on it. So it's important to the 49ers. Trey Lance getting that work in. He's going to be doing handing off this year. That run game with that stable of running backs they have under Anthony Lynn, it's going to be a big deal in this offense. I think toward the end of this drill, when you started to see that the handoffs and the fakes to the naked side, to the right side, which I think starts the snap, you start to see Brian Griese get into much more hands-on mode coaching Trey Lance. There he is. There's Brian Griese gesticulating, showing how it's supposed to be done. Might be talking to Brock Purdy at the same time. Now he's trying to get Trey Lance's attention for some of that footwork. So I thought that this was a good back and forth because one of the things that we're so curious about is what is Brian Griese going to be like as a first-time coach? Monday Night Football broadcaster, but first-time coach. And I think the answer is really hands-on. He likes getting down and dirty there. He likes catching some of those passes from Lance, and obviously more than Rich Gangarello, that's for sure. He's sitting there actually demonstrating. There's more demonstration from Brian Griese. So that's how I ended up the reel. I thought that was all good stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed what I put out there. In general today, 49ers practice, thought we saw practice representation of the 49ers larger formula. And by that, I mean, this team, if they're going to, try to contend for a title this year, or even just the playoffs, defense is going to have to drive this football team. Let's be honest here. Trey Lance has hardly played football in the last 2 years, right? I mean, 10 quarters of action for the 49ers last year. But before that, 2020 essentially wiped out for North Dakota State. And, even if you count the 2019 North Dakota State season and the recent experience for Trey Lance, it's already 2022. Even if you count that it was FCS level football, it's going to take a while. Let's be totally realistic for him to acclimate to the NFL level. I'm a bigger Trey Lance proponent than anybody as far as somebody who's analyzing the game. I sat here in January of 2021, 2 months before the 49ers made the trade up to number 3. And I said the 49ers need to draft Trey Lance because there's injury concerns with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's time to start grooming the future, right? You want to get that quarterback of the future ready. And I loved Lance coming out of North Dakota State. I thought, A, he was a tank physically. I thought, B, he was really smart. C, that North Dakota State quarterback factory, they know how to make pro-style quarterbacks. I mean, that school is able to implement an NFL system under their QB coach, Randy Hedberg, that translates to, I think, what Kyle Shanahan wants. So I thought that Kyle would be able to look at Trey's film and say, hey, this guy's making the right decision with the football within the context of a play action based offense, I can coach this guy and mold him, moldable clay is a term I use a lot, into the parameters of my system. But on top of that, he also has escapability. And I'm speaking as Kyle Shanahan here. If I'm going to spend so much draft capital to get my quarterback of the future, he better blow the top off of the ceiling. And to blow the top off of the ceiling, he's going to have the potential to develop into a Steve Young or John Elway type. And that is somebody who can dissect from the pocket. It's got the brains to dissect from the pocket, but the brawn and the athleticism to add that extra dimension mobility-wise. Running is not a first option. Yes, they're going to do some read option stuff, but that's not going to be the primary thing for the 49ers. They're going to try to execute the 49ers bread and butter, the outside zone, the play action, the boot system. They're going to try to win from the pocket because that's what you have to do at this level, but they're going to get an added bonus. That added bonus they hope can take them to the next level with Trey Lance's mobility. So anyway, this is going to all take a long time to fully realize. You can't expect Trey Lance to be Patrick Mahomes and how Mahomes was in 2018. It's probably an outlier, right? Josh Allen took a little bit longer to develop. Probably a Josh Allen timetable. You want it to be a little bit quicker than that. You don't want it to take year 3. Maybe you want it, to be here in the second half of this season. But either way, the defense is the locomotive that has to pull the train. And when I say that we saw practice representation of the 49ers' larger formula today, well, I think that their defense is going to have to be a top 3 type of unit. Their special teams can't screw things up. And the offense has to be given runway time over the course of the first half of the season for Trey Lance to get his feet wet, and B, for that offensive line, which I was just talking about a few minutes ago, all the concerns I talked about the offensive line, the 49ers have to figure out a way to make everything gel, make everything meld together offensively, because this season's a marathon and it's not a sprint. And then by the end of the season, maybe you have a top 10 offense. Maybe you have a top 2 defense, special teams, top half of the league. Boom, you are a contender. I mean, last year, in a lot of ways, it was the opposite, right? The first half of the season, the 49ers were like the 20th ranked defense in the league. They weren't any good. And the offense actually was playing well. The offense for the 49ers was consistently a top 10 efficiency unit. And even during that one hot stretch of the middle of the season, when Garoppolo played 5 or 6 really good games, the offense was top 3, top 4 efficiency. They finished the season top 7, I want to say. They were top 6 or top 7. And then Jimmy got hurt against Tennessee, got hurt again against Dallas. In the playoffs, they just scrapped and clawed and they won a bunch of games. But they ultimately lost to the Rams. But anyway, the offense was actually statistically the driver of last season's team. It wasn't until week 14 against the Bengals that the defense and that pass rush showed up in a big way. And special teams was garbage, inconsistent garbage throughout the entire season. So the offense had to make up for a lot. The defense had to make up for a lot. And finally, special teams paid everybody back against Green Bay by showing up in that game. But the 49ers were kind of a disjointed mess for a lot of last season, right? And it was the offense leading the defense. Well, I think this year it's going to have to be the opposite. The special teams is going to have to be better than 2021, which is why they invested so much in the special teams and brought in a new coordinator. But on top of that, I think it's the defense that's going to have to surge to that next level. And, I'm going to put it back up on the screen right here. Charvarius Ward, DBs duke it out with Trey Lance. The 49ers secondary, I think, is deeper and better than it has been at any time in this Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch era. They're going to have to be. And, D Ford released the other day, they're going to have to find a supplementary edge rusher to Nick Bosa. And they have plenty of potential options, right? Sansom Ebukam, Kamoko Toure, Drake Jackson, their draft pick. I mean, you could go down the list. Amenahu, I just talked about him. Jordan Willis, speaking of special teams heroes against Green Bay. Out of that pool of guys, the 49ers need to find a bookend to Nick Bosa to make that pass rush what it was down the stretch of last season. And down the stretch of last season, all the advanced metrics indicated the 49ers were the number 3 defense in football. They finished as the number 3 defense in football. They started as the number 20 unit. So you got to carry over that finish, and you have a better, more talented secondary now. You got to carry over that finish with a similar kind of pass rush surge into 2022. And that is the microcosm of what the 49ers need to give their offense, to give Trey Lance and that offensive line some runway to develop. And you know what else the 49ers have? They may have the best linebacking core in football. This is the piece that I wrote yesterday. Azeez Al-Shaair rounds out the 49ers linebacker group that may be the NFL's best. I'm going to copy and paste this link into the chat section because I'm proud of this piece. Everybody's writing about Trey Lance, this, Trey Lance, that. I wrote about that too. I've written about that a lot. But I think the 49ers linebackers don't get enough credit. You talk about the secondary surging, and obviously this first 10 minutes of this video was me talking about individual members of the secondary. You talk about the defensive line. Well, a week or two ago, I wrote a big piece, interviewing Chris Kacerek about the defensive line and all the love that they deserve. And Chris Kacerek definitely now gets for coaching that defensive line. I think he's the best in football. Well, it's time to talk about the 49ers linebacking crew and Johnny Holland and D'Amico Ryans too. But Johnny Holland, I mean, this guy, he's back now. The 49ers are thrilled that he's back with them. He underwent cancer treatment, multiple myeloma in that 2021 season. He co-coached the linebackers, D'Amico Ryans, before D'Amico got promoted to defensive coordinator. And it's really, really clear that the 49ers have formed a bond with D'Amico, with Johnny Holland. Johnny Holland would have Azeez Al-Shire back in the summer of 2019. Azeez, coming off ACL surgery in college, was, alone essentially in Santa Clara, living in a Santa Clara Marriott, hadn't made the team yet, didn't even have a car, just had his bike, had to stay in Santa Clara over the summer because he's rehabbing from the ACL. Johnny Holland would invite Azeez to his house over the weekends, and Azeez would bike there in the middle of the July heat in the South Bay. And they just developed a bond with their linebackers coach, who, by the way, Johnny Holland was D'Amico Ryans' linebackers coach with the Houston Texans. And Johnny Holland played for the Packers before then. So, I mean, you just have this amazing family bond, right? And now Azeez Al-Shire has developed from undrafted free agent who's biking around town because he doesn't have any money yet. He obviously made his way onto the team through that 2019 season, overcame the ACL, and now the 49ers have blossomed between him, his roommate that year, Dre Greenlaw, who apparently is a really messy roommate, and Fred Warner, who got paid last year. This might be the best linebacker core in the league. And that's something. I mean, that's not nothing. I'll tell you that, because you've got a great secondary potentially now with all his talent they have there. You've got Chris Kacerek's defensive line. Well, in the middle, you might have the glue to it all, the best linebacking core in the league. And when we look at the representation of the larger formula, well, that's it right there. I think the 49ers can have a top 3 defense this year. And that's maybe what Trey Lance needs moving forward. All right, guys, hit that like button. Hell yeah, hit that like button. I'm going to answer a couple questions. And right now, I just noticed that Margot, my fiance, is calling me. She's I think driving home right now, so I'm gonna have to give her a call back in a second. We got a good crowd here, 317 people. So I want to encourage everybody to like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're having a lot of fun on the channel, as you can tell. I'm just out here working hard. This is after I've done a podcast today. I've written articles today. I've been out in the sun at camp today. I swam in the bay today. Found a great spot, Coyote Point, San Mateo. I swam this morning at like 6:30 a.m. right under the planes landing at SFO. It was exhilarating. Those big jets coming in, making a lot of noise. They come out of the fog, and I'm just there swimming. Didn't see any sharks, didn't see any seals, whatever. I could swim faster than them anyway if they try to get me. But that was awesome. I'm going to go back to that spot. Their aquatic park in San Francisco. It's all good times. I'm going to do a separate Q&A a little bit later. This video is just, I'm so happy all of you are aboard right now. We're getting more and more viewers, but I think we got to do a Q&A in a separate session. Maybe I pick two questions, then we'll do a Q&A, a separate session. So why don't you just make sure that you subscribe to the channel right now so you're ready for the Q&A. Where do you find your podcast? It is, I think you can find it anywhere. It's called Here's the Catch, but The Athletic is where the main thing's going to be. You could call into the podcast too when we do these live rooms. It's really neat. How do I think Trey will do this season? I think he's going to be good. I think he's going to get better as the year goes along. All right, guys, I got to go. Sub to the channel. Thanks for joining. That's been today's 49ers recap. Hope all is well. Take care.